Welcome to Phase 1 of the Conscious Energy Program. This phase is called the Energy Domain. In this phase, our focus is very specific. We are going to begin understanding and working with the system that governs how your energy is received, processed, and expressed. Before we go deeper, it's important to define the scope of what we're doing here. We are not trying to change your life overnight. We are not trying to force outcomes. What we are doing is learning how your energy system is structured, how it behaves, and how to begin bringing it into alignment. Within you, the energy domain consists of three primary components. First, the chakras. These are your energy centers. They are responsible for receiving and interpreting energy from the source. Second, the nadis. These are your energy pathways. They distribute that energy throughout your system so it can be used. And third, the body. The body is where energy is expressed. It is where your energy becomes physical in your actions, your emotions, and your overall state. In this phase, we are going to focus primarily on the chakras and the nadis, how energy is received and how it moves. The body domain, which is how that energy is actually used and expressed through your biological systems, will be covered in detail in Phase 2. Now that you understand the basic structure of the energy system, we're going to look at how we actually analyze and measure it. Because in this program, we are not guessing about your energy. We are observing patterns. Each chakra is evaluated using three key parameters: polarity, quality, and constitution. These three together give us a clear picture of the current condition of your energy system. Polarity describes how energy is being expressed along a spectrum of masculine and feminine. Masculine energy is active, outward, directive, and doing. And feminine energy is receptive, inward, allowing, and sensing. Every chakra contains both. The goal is not to eliminate one or the other, it's balance. Imbalance happens in two ways. Overexpression represents too much force control or outward push. Underexpression represents withdrawal, passivity, or lack of engagement. So when we look at polarity, we're asking, is this chakra pushing too hard or not showing up enough? Quality is described through what are called the gunas. There are three. Sattva represents clarity, balance, and harmony. Rajas represents activity, intensity, and drive. And tamas represents inertia, heaviness, and stagnation. All three exist in everyone. What the ratio between them determines how your energy feels and behaves. In a healthy state, Sattva brings clarity and stability. Rajas provides movement and motivation. Tamas allows rest and grounding. But when imbalanced, too much Rajas can feel like anxiety, overdrive, or restlessness. Too much Tamas can feel like fatigue, avoidance, or stuckness. Too little Sattva leads to lack of clarity and poor decision making. So quality tells us how clean or distorted the energy is within each chakra. Constitution is described through the doshas. These represent how energy is physically and behaviorally expressed in your system. There are three. Vata represents movement, variability, and change. Pitta represents intensity, transformation, and focus. And Kapha represents stability, structure, and consistency. Each of these has a healthy expression and a shadow expression. In balance, Vata supports creativity and adaptability. Pitta supports drive and execution. Kapha supports stability and endurance. In imbalance, Vata becomes scattered or anxious. Pitta becomes aggressive or overly controlling. Kapha becomes stagnant or resistant to change. So constitution tells us how energy shows up in your behavior and physical tendencies. Bringing it all together, when we combine these three, polarity is how energy is expressed, quality is how balanced or distorted it is, and constitution is how it shows up in your system. We get a complete picture of each chakra, and this is important. These parameters are not labels, they are not judgments, they are simply a way of describing the current condition of your energy so that we can begin to bring it into alignment. Now we're going to walk through each of the 7 chakras. For each one, we'll look at what it governs, how imbalance shows up, and how energy behaves within it, and how that translates into your actual life experience. As you listen, don't try to analyze everything perfectly. Just notice what resonates. The root chakra is located at the base of the spine and is anchored by the perineum or pelvic floor. The parts of the body it is associated with are the muscular and skeletal systems and the large intestine. It governs your sense of safety, stability, and physical grounding. It is your foundation, your relationship with survival, security, and the physical world. In terms of polarity, overactive expression can show up as control, rigidity, or fear-based decision-making. Underactive expression can show up as lack of discipline, instability, or avoidance. In quality, Sattva brings a calm, grounded presence. Rajas shows up as survival, stress, or constant pressure. Tamas shows up as heaviness, fear, or shutdown. In constitution, Vata imbalance creates instability or anxiety. Pitta imbalance creates tension or control. And Kapha imbalance creates stagnation or resistance. In your life, this chakra shows up in your inconsistency, your habits, and your relationship with money, work, and structure. The sacral chakra is located in your lower abdomen and is anchored by the reproductive organs and hips. The parts of the body it is associated with are the reproductive and urinary systems. It governs emotion, connection, creativity, and pleasure. It is how you experience and relate to others and to life itself. Polarity, overactive expression can show up as emotional overwhelm, attachment, or dependency. Underactive expression can show up as emotional numbness, disconnection, or avoidance. For quality, Sattva brings healthy emotional flow and connection. Rajas can show up as emotional intensity, highs and lows. Tamas can show up as suppression, avoidance, or lack of feeling. In constitution, Vata imbalance creates emotional inconsistency. Pitta imbalance creates reactive or intense emotional responses. Kapha imbalance creates emotional holding or attachment. In life, this shows up in relationships, creativity, enjoyment, and your ability to feel and process emotion. The solar plexus is located in the upper abdomen, above the navel. It is anchored by the diaphragm or stomach area. The part of the body it is associated with is the digestive system. It governs personal power, identity, and decision making. This is your ability to take action and direct your life. For polarity, overactive expression can show up as control, dominance, or ego-driven action. Underactive expression can show up as lack of confidence, indecision, or passivity. In quality, Sattva brings clear, confident action. Rajas can show up as overdrive, pressure, or burnout tendencies. And Tamas can show up as lack of motivation or avoidance. For constitution, Vata imbalance creates inconsistent action. Pitta imbalance creates aggressive or forceful behavior. And Kapha imbalance creates resistance or lack of drive. In life, this shows up in confidence, discipline, follow-through, and how you handle challenges. This is also closely tied to your will and commitment, which we'll expand on later in the program. The heart chakra is located at the center of the chest and is physically anchored by the heart and lungs. The parts of the body it is associated with are the circulatory and respiratory systems. It governs connection, empathy, and emotional balance. It is the bridge between your lower and upper energy systems. For polarity, overactive expression shows up as overgiving, lack of boundaries. Underactive expression shows up as emotional withdrawal or guardedness. For quality, Sattva brings compassion, balance, and openness. Rajas can show up as emotional turbulence or over-involvement. Tamas can show up as numbness, detachment, or shutdown. For constitution, Vata imbalance creates inconsistency in connection. Pitta imbalance creates conditional or intense love. Kapha imbalance creates attachment or difficulty letting go. In life, this shows up in relationships, empathy, forgiveness, and your ability to give and receive. We'll later connect this to how your body regulates emotional stress. The throat chakra is located at the throat or neck region and is physically anchored by the thyroid and vocal cords. The parts of the body associated with are the communication pathways and respiratory system. It governs communication, expression, and truth. This is how your internal world becomes external. For polarity, overactive expression shows up as talking too much and forcing opinions. Underactive expression shows up as holding back or fear of speaking. For quality, Sattva brings clear, honest communication. Raja shows up as reactive or impulsive speech. Tamas shows up as silence, suppression, or avoidance. Constitution, Vata imbalance creates scattered or inconsistent expression. Pitta imbalance creates sharp or aggressive communication. Kapha imbalance creates withheld or overly reserved speech. In life, this shows up in how you communicate, how you express truth, and how aligned your words are with your actions. The third eye chakra is located between the eyebrows and is anchored to your pineal and pituitary gland region, which is the center of the brain. The parts of the body it is associated with are the endocrine and nervous systems. It governs perception, awareness, and insight. This is how you interpret reality and see patterns. For polarity, overactive expression shows up as overthinking and mental overload. Underactive expression shows up as lack of clarity and poor awareness. For quality, Sattva brings clear perception and understanding. Rajas shows up as mental activity and overanalysis. Tamas shows up as confusion, fog, or lack of awareness. For constitution, Vata imbalance creates scattered thinking. Pitta imbalance creates overly critical or analytical. Kapha imbalance creates slow or resistant perception. In life, this shows up in decision-making, awareness, intuition, and how clearly you see situations. We'll later connect this to how your brain processes information. And finally, the crown chakra is located at the top of the head, slightly above the crown. It is physically anchored to the cerebral cortex. The body system it is responsible for is the central nervous system. It governs your connection to source, meaning, and higher awareness. This is your relationship with something greater than yourself. For polarity, overactive expression shows up as disconnection from reality, over-idealism, and underactive expression shows up as lack of meaning or direction. For quality, Sattva brings clarity, peace, and connection, whereas Rajas shows up as searching, striving, or over-seeking. Tamas shows up as disconnection, apathy, or nihilism. For constitution, Vata imbalance creates unstable connection or belief. Pitta imbalance creates rigid beliefs or overstructuring. Kapha imbalance creates resistance to higher awareness. In life, this shows up in purpose, belief systems, sense of direction, and connection to something greater. As you can see, each chakra influences very real parts of your life. Your thoughts, your emotions, and your behaviors, they are all expressions of these underlying energy patterns. And while we've touched lightly on how this connects to the body, next we're going to look at how to interpret your energy report and what it actually tells you about your current state. Now that you understand how the chakra system is structured and how it's evaluated, let's talk about how to interpret your energy report. Your report is a reflection of three things. First, the current condition of each chakra. It shows how each energy center is functioning right now, not in theory, but in your actual present state. Second, it shows any imbalances in polarity, whether energy is being overexpressed or underexpressed. Third, it shows the quality and constitution of that energy, how clear or distorted it is, and how it is showing up in your system. It's important to understand this clearly. Your report is not a judgment. It is not labeling you as good or bad, balanced or broken. It is simply a diagnostic map. In the same way that a physical assessment might show strength, weakness, or imbalance in the body, this report shows patterns in your energy system. This is where most people get it wrong. They try to jump straight to fixing things, but in this program, awareness comes first, because you cannot align something you do not understand. So as you review a report, the goal is not to react to it, the goal is to observe it, to begin recognizing where your energy is stable, where it is inconsistent, and where it may be working against you. This awareness is what allows the next steps in the program to actually work, because once you can see your energy clearly, you can begin to work with it instead of being unconsciously driven by it. Now let's talk about what all of this actually means for your day-to-day life. At a high level, your energy system is always in one of two states. It is either aligned or it is misaligned. When your energy is misaligned, it shows up in very unpredictable ways. You may experience emotional instability as feeling up and down without clear reason, reactivity as responding impulsively instead of intentionally, confusion as not knowing what to do or second-guessing decisions, and disconnection from yourself, from others, or from any sense of purpose. In this state, life tends to feel harder than it needs to be. You may find yourself forcing things, overthinking, or constantly trying to regain control. On the other side, when your energy is aligned, the experience is very different. You begin to notice clarity, where you can see situations more directly and make cleaner decisions, stability, where your emotions and reactions become more consistent, and natural decision making, which leads to less overthinking, more knowing what to do, and a sense of flow, where things begin to feel more connected and less forced. This doesn't mean life becomes perfect, but it does mean you move through it with far less resistance. And this is the key idea. Your life experience is a direct reflection of your energetic condition, not in a philosophical sense, in a very practical one. How you think, how you feel, how you act, and what you experience, all of it is influenced by the state of your inner energy system. So instead of trying to control every outcome in your life, what we focus on in this program is something much more effective. We work on bringing your energy into alignment, because when your energy is aligned, your actions, your decisions, and your experiences begin to align with it. Next, we're going to talk about how alignment actually happens and why it's not something you can force. Now let's talk about how alignment actually happens, because this is where the approach in this program is different from what most people are used to. Alignment is not something you force. It is not something you think your way into. It is not something you control through effort alone. Alignment happens through a process called surrender. Surrender in this context does not mean giving up. It means releasing the need to control everything and becoming open to guidance from the source. Because the reality is, your energy system already knows how to align, but it cannot do that effectively when it is being constantly overridden by control, resistance, or overthinking. So instead of forcing alignment, we create the conditions that allow alignment to happen. And that's the purpose of the 7 steps of conscious energy. The 7 steps are designed to do 3 things. First, they establish intention. You are making a clear internal decision that you are ready to align. Second, they signal readiness. You are in a very real way communicating that you are open to change and guidance. And third, they help you release control. They begin to shift you out of forcing outcomes and into allowing alignment. For some people, this may feel unfamiliar. It may even feel a little uncomfortable at first, because most of us are conditioned to believe that we have to control everything in order to improve it. But in this process, you are doing something different. You are stepping into a position where you allow alignment to occur, instead of trying to manufacture it. This step is foundational, because without surrender, the rest of the program becomes much harder than it needs to be. Next, we're going to talk about the practices themselves and how they are used to tune your energy system. Let's talk about the 21 practices that we do in this phase, because it's important to understand exactly what they are doing and what they are not doing. These practices are not designed to directly create alignment. You are not using them to force your energy into place. You are not using them to fix yourself. Instead, the purpose of the practices is to tune your energy system. A simple way to understand this is through an analogy. Think of your energy system like a guitar. Each chakra is like a string on that guitar. For the instrument to function properly, each string has to be tuned to the correct tension. If a guitar is out of tune, it doesn't matter how skilled the person playing it is not going to sound right. In the same way, you can have discipline, intelligence, and effort. But if your energy system is out of tune, your results will feel inconsistent and forced. On the other side, if a guitar is perfectly tuned, but the person playing it doesn't understand how to play, the result is still limited. So tuning alone is not everything, but it is foundational. This is where the practices come in. Each practice is designed to adjust, stabilize, and refine a different part of your energy system. You are not forcing change. You are making small, consistent adjustments that bring the system back into proper alignment range. And this leads to the key idea. You are not the one forcing the outcome. Your role is to prepare the system, to tune it, to stabilize it, to bring it into a state where it can function properly. When that happens, something different occurs. Instead of you trying to control everything, the source is able to move through your system more clearly. Your actions become more natural. Your decisions become more direct. Your experience becomes more aligned. So as you move through these practices, don't approach them as something you have to master. Approach them as a process of tuning. Because when the system is tuned correctly, you don't have to force the outcome. The system brings to work the way it was designed to. Next, we will bring everything together and prepare you for the transition into the next phase. All right, before we end this, let's bring everything that we learned in this phase together. So in phase 1, you were introduced to the structure of your energy system, the chakras, which receive and interpret energy, the nadis, which distribute that energy, and the body, which expresses that energy in your daily life. You also learned how we measure and understand this system through polarity, which is how the energy is expressed, through quality, which is how balanced or distorted that energy is, and through constitution, which is how that energy shows up in your system. From there, you began developing awareness of your own energy state, not as a judgment, but as a clear observation of how your system is currently functioning. You also learned 2 critical principles. First, that alignment is not forced. It happens through surrender and openness to the source. And second, that the practices are not used to create alignment, but to tune your energy system, so alignment can occur naturally. If you take one thing from this phase, it's this. Your role is not to control everything. Your role is to understand your system, bring awareness to it, and begin preparing it to function the way it was designed to. Now, once you have completed the 7 steps of conscious energy and your 21 practices, we will move into the next phase of the program, which is the body domain. Up to this point, you've been learning how energy is received and how it moves. In phase 2, we shift focus to something just as important, how that energy is actually used. You'll begin to understand how your energy system interacts with your biological systems and how your body either supports stability or creates further imbalance. From there, we'll begin training the body directly so it can properly support, stabilize, and express aligned energy. This is where the work becomes more tangible and where your energy begins to translate into real physical change. See you next time.